the 1970s and 80s, Californians were terrorized by a serial killer known by many monikers, but would go down in infamy as the Golden State Killer. For 2 decades, his crimes would torment the state of California, until one day, they just stopped. In the years that followed, the mystery of the Golden State Killer would draw the attention of true crime fans and amateur sleuths around the world. Then in 2018, an arrest was finally made, and here, the story seemed to end. But some believe that the killer was never far away, that if you visited certain corners of the internet to discuss the case with other like-minded fans of true crime, there was a chance you could be speaking with the man himself. This is the story of the Golden State Killer, the serial rapist and murderer who may have been an active member of the communities trying to unmask him. And this is It Came from the Internet.
Welcome back to the podcast. Shane, welcome back.
Thanks, Johnny.
And listeners, I guess, welcome back.
Oh yeah, them too.
Still no catchy opening, but early days. We'll get one. I'll come up with something.
Yep.
Well, on that note, we'll just get right into it. If we've established we've got no banter to open with, so we can just get right into it.
Yeah.
This week, I think we're going to go down kind of a strange road. It might seem like an odd choice for an internet-focused podcast, but I promise this will come together in the end.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you now, Shane, because the listeners probably already know, because the title will give it away. You're the only one that's kind of in the dark exactly where this is going.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, well, you know what we're talking about today, but it's more about sort of
what avenue of it, or
yeah, I guess in a way it'll kind of just be a creepy reminder of, for better or worse, how much closer we all are because of the internet. But to get there, we need to start with the Golden State Killer. So what do you know about the Golden State Killer? I mean, not everything, but like roughly what do you know? Like how informed are you?
I knew very little. Most what I knew about it was that I've forgotten her name now, which is an Irish name. It's Patton Oswalt's wife,
Michelle McNamara.
McNamara had pretty much figured out who it was and had written a book. She didn't finish it.
She didn't figure out who it was. No,
or she thought she knew who it was, or whatever. She had a lot of theories. Or
no. She just investigated. She put together a lot of the case and linked the fact that he was a few different serial killers. She never had any theories about who he was.
Oh, anything. Okay. I thought that's my wrong information. Then I just remember. I know that when it comes up, her name comes up a lot as well. And
she had theories in that she had a profile for him, but so did the FBI.
Yeah. But anyway, a serial killer who started out in the 70s and right through to the 80s and operated mostly around a couple of towns. And as it's turned out, was actually, as you said, there are several people thought it was several different serial killers, but it turns out it was all one guy who just changed his method a little bit. And then there was also a lack of communication between different police districts and things like that probably should have put those dots together a lot sooner.
Yeah, that was a big problem with it. It's like different departments being like, oh, that stuff doesn't happen here, so we don't need to worry about them.
Yeah.
And like we're not going to go into him too much mainly because there is, I would just a guess, but I would say there's maybe 25,000 true crime podcasts out there about him. And this isn't really a true crime podcast. Yeah, I guess it's true crime adjacent. It'd probably be in the true crime category because I'm not sure where else you'd put it. Of the 3 categories you go in, it'd be true crime would be one of them.
And you did a deep dive with those conspiracy guys into it.
I did an episode of those conspiracy guys about, well, it was not long after he was arrested. I think it was 2018 or early 2019.
Yeah.
We done about 3 hours on it, so I would recommend people listen to that. Or there is also Case File podcast, done a really good 3 or 4 part series on it.
Oh, good.
And there's also a podcast called I haven't listened to it, but The Man in the Window. That's just like a 10-part series about it.
Yeah.
There's also the HBO series adapted from Michelle McNamara's book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. You could watch that.
Oh, yeah.
We will do a summary anyway, but for people that don't, for some reason, are listen to true crime adjacent podcasts and aren't aware, I would recommend them.
Very good.
The series, I watched the first episode. It's not bad. It's a docu-series, not a live action recreation or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
But he's now known as Joeseph James DeAngelo. And he, for the people that don't want to listen to the stuff, I'll give a quick summary. He was, originally he was a serial rapist, eventually became a serial killer. And he terrorized communities around California in the 70s and 80s, as Shane said. And very recently, in 2018, DNA evidence was finally able to lead to his capture through using a genealogy website. They were able to track distant relatives and eventually made links to closer relatives until they got down to him. You know, they had something like 100 suspects through the DNA match originally. Well, I think it was 100, and eventually were able to match it to him. But before he became known as the Golden State Killer, he had a lot of names. He was the original Night Stalker and the East Area Rapist, so he became known as ERONs for a while, the abbreviations put together.
Yeah.
When they kind of realized they were the same people. But even before, they didn't really put this together until 2017, I think, this next part. And it was only confirmed when they arrested him. But before he even got those names, he was the Visalia ransacker.
Yeah.
And in the city of Visalia, not actually sure how to pronounce it, but a city in California. And to me, that's always been the weirdest one, because he was just responsible for just a series of burglaries where he didn't really do anything. Yeah. Other than steal really dumb stuff. Like he'd ignore a safe in the house and steal like a child's piggy bank.
Yeah.
Just bizarre. And that was actually where he committed his first murder. But I think he himself wouldn't consider it his first victim, because it was kind of, I wouldn't say accidental, but he was pretty much disturbed trying to kidnap a young teenager in the house by her father, and he ended up shooting the dad. So that was technically his first victim, but it was still years before he actually graduated towards being a serial killer.
Yeah.
It was in 76 is when the first rape is reckoned to have happened. By that I mean I suspect he was committing loads long before anything we know about.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I suspect he probably killed long before that too, but officially 76 was when he became the East Area Rapist. And that spree went on up until 79. At that point, he raped 40 women.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Then he moved south and kind of... Yeah, that's where he graduated to murder. His crimes got more and more extreme once he moved south.
Yeah. And
he ended up killing... what they reckon, 10 people anyway. 4 couples and then 2 single women.
Wow.
There is a few that they know of a few murders around that period and in those areas that they think might have been him, but so far nothing's been confirmed. But that's the rough gist of his story. If you don't want to go back and listen to anything else, and
so they can contribute 10 murders to him.
Oh, 10. That's the 10 as the original Night Stalker. He had killed twice before that. Once, or wait, no, he'd killed the father as the Visalia ransacker, and I think he'd killed 2 people in between that. But in he got this again. It was he got disturbed during a crime and shot or whatever. I think it's 13 in total. Just
still,
I could be wrong about that. I feel like I'm trying to remember back now to when I done the Those Conspiracy Guys episode. I feel like on that when I actually done loads of research, it was 13.
Oh yeah.
He was charged with or found guilty of 8. I'm not, again, I haven't looked into it, but I guess it's just whatever way the courts worked, that they could present 8 murders, even though they definitively know that it's either 10 or 13 that they definitively know about, but for some reason only charged him for the 8.
I suppose it's probably about scope and keeping it as simple for juries to make sure you get a conviction and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a weird one because like there's no on murder, there's no statute of limitations, but
it kind of sounds like, and I thought this when I was listening, because I only listened this week to those Conspiracy Guys episodes, so I was a bit more up on the case. And in some ways, it almost seems like a textbook evolution of a serial killer, how he did stuff.
Yeah.
But I suppose the whole point at the time, that wasn't a known kind of route. You know what I mean? It was, they were only kind of really getting into knowing more about sequence killers, serial killers at that time.
Yeah. Which is what makes a textbook case. You know, he'd be what they would put into the textbook.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like, because now looking at it through, I suppose, the lens of 2022, you're like, oh my God, that's so obvious. Why, like, that's like something straight out of the book. Why wouldn't they put this together? But it's because of him that book exists. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta think of it that way. It's
and what we didn't mention in the summation there was that he was a cop.
Yeah.
So that helped him quite a bit. Depending on, like, there's still various things we don't actually know about him. Like, we don't know really for certain whether he did actually attend neighborhood watch meetings in the communities. Discussing how to catch him. It's assumed he did because there was, like, you know, there was an instance where at a community meeting, some guy stood up and said, like, that this would never happen in my home. I'd never let somebody do this to my wife. And then a few nights later, him and his wife became like victims number 7.
I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
That's probably that's the one that got me the most, because it's just so, like,
that's fucking terrifying.
It's so brazen and just like, I'll show you. You know, it's, he had to have been there, or it was a crazy coincidence.
He had to have been there. Is one way to think of it, or that it's a crazy coincidence, or is it just, like, think about it, like, it does sound, and I didn't think of this at the time when I done the Those Conspiracy Guys episode. That's such a hard sentence to say, Those Conspiracy Guys episode. But think of it, you know, how many of those community meetings were there, and how many men stood up and said, this would never happen under my watch?
Yeah.
Probably like 80% of the time there was some lad stood up and made that announcement, because that's what those type of guys would do. So, like, statistically, one of them was bound to become a victim. You don't hear about the 900 guys who said that and never became victims.
Yeah, and, like, how much of, like, as people are going in the door and having like, neighbours having conversations, how many of them are saying that kind of shit? Like, so it's...
Yeah, well, this guy apparently stood up and said it, but I would say that happened an awful lot where people stood up and said it. But this is kind of relevant to what I'm going to talk about later. Just people kind of pick out the one instance where something came of it and focus on that. But, like, there's so many times somebody would have said that and nothing happened. So
yeah.
Now, I still think it is absolutely likely that he was there in the community meeting. Yeah. But it's really not definitive.
Probably representing the local police force.
But he was just a creepy motherfucker in general. Just everything, like the way he scoped out the places, and, like, he done things to essentially would let them know how long he'd been watching them. Like, he would go into the house, because, like, everybody was, like, on edge about this guy, so everybody was buying guns and arming up, and he would go in, like, a few days beforehand and remove bullets from the guns. But he wouldn't, like, keep the bullets. He'd leave the bullets somewhere else in the house. So it was, like, weeks after the attack, they'd be, like, cleaning their house and find the bullets under the child's pillow or something like that.
Yeah.
So it was just one extra way to get at them. Like, they might just be getting over, like, 6 months after the attack, the woman might just be getting over it, and then she's up in her attic taking down the Christmas decorations, and she finds, like, the bullets from the gun left up there or something, you know? He just had this way of toying with people even after. Yeah, like, he was so horrendous, and, like, he continued making phone calls and stuff up until, like, 2001 at the very earliest. Yeah.
I didn't realise that. I knew it was kind of like after victims after he'd attacked people, he'd keep calling them, but I didn't realise he did it for years. Like,
now, they were really infrequent after 1991. It's like 3 or 4 times, but clear, like, on an anniversary of an attack or something, he'd every now and again he'd still call. I think after 2001 there was another maybe, but it was just a hang-up call. Yeah. It's not even, who knows if it even was him.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had to play it far more carefully after, like, once you get into the 90s, with how he could be traced and stuff, you know?
Yeah. And it's like he he stopped in, was it 86, 87?
86, yeah.
And it stopped. Like, I find that probably the most interesting, that he just...
Yeah. There was a cooling off period for a while, I think between, was it 79 and 80... I don't even know. Maybe it was 81 to 85, and then he had a year. And then in 86, he killed again and then took a break. I think we now know that the original cooling off period he had was because it was when he lost his job. He lost his job as a cop.
Oh, yeah.
And then took a few years off, then came back, and then disappeared again and never killed again. Interestingly, he lost his job being a cop because he was caught shoplifting from a hardware store. And he was stealing a dog repellent and a hammer and like cable ties. Things he didn't want on his credit card statements or whatever.
That's mad. Like, just the idea that it's just hilarious.
That's so blatant.
Yeah. And then that didn't create any flags. Like, yeah.
No. Well, apparently now, I don't know if this is true because I'm just heard this or read this on like a message board, but when they had made the DNA links to a few people, he was put at the bottom of the list because he was a former cop.
Oh, yeah. The attitude was like, oh, sure, it can't be him.
Yeah. Like, ridiculous. And you know what? If this happened again in 5 years' time, if the exact same thing happened, they'd do the same. They'd be like, oh, we'll put the cop at the bottom of the list, can't be him, even knowing that the Golden State Killer was a cop.
Yeah. This is, of course. Because that's the way it works. I must read up more because I'd love to know more about his career as a cop. Like, was he a good cop? Like, or, you know, not that I mean like was he good at his job is what I mean. Not like, was he a nice cop?
Well, apparently he had an outrageous temper, or could have an outrageous temper.
Yeah.
Like his brother-in-law talked about that. There was like a couple of like road rage incidences where he pulled a gun on people and stuff like that, which is probably not uncommon for a cop, to be honest. But
obviously he just liked having power over people, and that's probably why he became a cop.
Well, you hear it a lot about certain like people. I don't want to talk shit about anybody, but there's certain let's say like commentators online in the political sphere who you'll often hear they give off very small dick energy, let's say, like people who feel like they need to walk around their podcast studio with a gun holster. Yeah. Like, and you just think small dick energy, just really small dick energy. And as we know about the Golden State Killer, he quite literally had a micro penis. And that seems to have been... Oh, you didn't know that, no?
No.
Yeah, no, he had a micro penis.
Yeah, I only knew from listening to the podcast you did that there's one point, it was one of his victims, the first time she saw him is he was standing outside the window with no pants on, and she noted how small his penis was.
Yeah, well, I guess...
But I didn't realize it was that
micro
level of... Yeah. That was a thing with him, but just that it was, I thought maybe it was cold outside, you know.
That's my speculation that it was micro anyway. I don't know if it was, because I think technically micro penis is an actual medical condition, so I'm not sure if it was small enough to meet that criteria. We'll put it this way. I know it was the 70s and free love, but the fact that literally everybody said he had a small penis, and like everybody's level of comparison is big. Like you're like when you see a penis and you think that's small, it's based on comparing it to other things you see, other ones you've seen. Like, and I just feel like all of those people couldn't have seen the exact same amount of penises in their life to all make the same comparison, unless it was literally just the smallest they'd ever seen.
Yeah. That's funny.
I'm not even sure if that makes sense, but you know what?
No, I get what you mean. Yeah. Because of it, if everyone says it, it has to be true. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those. Like,
it has to be especially small, though, is what I mean. Because, like, sure, you'd imagine there has to be one or two people in there who've only ever seen like their husbands and maybe an ex, and they're both roughly the same size. So if they see a really small one, do they think, oh, that's really small, or do they think, oh, my husband's is massive? You know what I mean?
Like, but the fact that it was noticeably small, you know, notably, not noticeably, notably, like it was worth mentioning. You know?
Well, exactly, yeah. It was like it would be an identifiable trait
Yeah,
from
yeah.
him.
It's like any tattoos or birthmarks. He had a really small dick.
I did read that he had to be photographed in the nude when he was arrested to confirm the match, his penis matched the description, and which was obviously deliberately meant to humiliate him because they found him through DNA, so they don't need to confirm if he matches the description.
Isn't he like in his 70s or something? Or
yeah, but I'd say it was just to humiliate him. Although I'd say he's beyond that anyway. Like, he probably got turned on by it. You wouldn't fucking know. Like, that's why he stopped. He just got like in 1986, he just like went to a fetish club and got like a femdom, like humiliation fetish instead. And that just done it for him. I
was just going to say that he must have found some other avenue to channel his frustrations and his vices. Like,
I don't think that's the wildest theory, like that. Yeah, he just found something else, but I'm not sure. Like, once you gravitate towards murder, and like I think it was his last victims where it was the weirdest, where he actually didn't. They found his DNA on them, and they came to the conclusion afterwards that they weren't actually raped; they were killed before he ejaculated. So they think he just killed him and then just like finished himself off.
That's crazy. He was just. Kind of didn't know what to do with himself.
But I believe they were his last. I'd be suspicious if he ever stopped.
That was kind of where I was going with that. Did he just realize that he was building a reputation with a specific MO and just started randomly raping women who were jogging or something, and just, you know what I mean, like completely changed it and stopped killing and just.
Every few years, he just couldn't resist it and just went out and drove like 50 miles away and just found some random anybody. Like, it didn't even matter who they were. The first person, and he just killed them straight away, like a real like Trinity killer kind of.
Yeah, he actually just broadened his kill zone, you know, and just and made it less, like, connected himself less to somebody like that. Like, just that's a good way of putting it. Probably that's a good theory, I should say. So he probably just changed his MO again, realized.
Yeah, but in general, so with what you do know about him, where do you think you would rank him in terms of like most like fucked up serial killers you've heard about?
Wow. It's kind of, I mean, he's not quite at Ted Bundy levels or anything like that. It's, do you know what it sounds awful.
He's pretty close to Bundy.
Yeah,
like, he'd be
close enough. It sounds awful, but maybe it's me being desensitized. It's that, like, his crime seems like quite a normal thing, except the fact that he did it so much. And he played all the mind tricks on top of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As in, like,
he's just a typical serial killer other than...
Yeah. In some kind of way, it's almost nothing special about him. You know what I mean? But then he played the psycho games, and he like used couples against each other, and did the phone calls and played the psycho, like broke into the house beforehand and planned escape routes and all that. Like, he just seemed to really overthink and plan out so much, but then I don't know.
Trial and error too, though. It wasn't that he was really smart. It was like something went wrong, and then he realized for the next time like when he realized essentially, or at least in my opinion, when he went for his first couple, he realized that made it easier. The man in the house made it easier because he'd done this thing where he tied them up and he'd put like plates and stuff on them and told them, if I hear them rattle, I'll kill her. And he realized that gave him more time. That, like, instilling fear in people actually was to his benefit. Like, because he knew they wouldn't go for help or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gave him more time to do stuff around the house, and
because it seems once he started going for couples, he stopped going for. Because there was one instance where he went to a house with a woman and her two daughters, and the woman ended up beating the shit out of him. Yeah, because like Mama Bear syndrome, like she was just going to do anything to protect her kids. And it seems like after that he realized that, like, he went for single couples then, like, because that was easier.
Yeah.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
Well, he had the automatic advantage of being law enforcement, so he had insider knowledge. He also like automatic kind of trust in the community, so he could get in easier with like when he was scoping people out. Like it's much easier to spy on people when you're a cop than if it's you or I, because nobody's suspicious of you. If a cop's standing across the street, like looking at your house for an hour, most people probably think he's looking for there's some robbery a few blocks away, and he's just looking for the suspect or whatever the fuck. Like people are far more trusting. They're not even going to notice.
Yeah, and he totally could have just knocked on their door and said, "Oh, there's been a lot of break-ins in the area.
Of course,
can I check out your security?" And then
he could have done
the layout of the house.
Yeah,
you know.
So that was an automatic advantage. So I don't think he really needs to be too smart. He just already has that advantage. Also, he done it so much. He had so much practice because he done it so much that he just learned from his own mistakes. I don't think it takes that much intelligence to, like, dogs learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, he actually seems like he probably isn't the most intelligent person. He just, he was very focused on certain things. It doesn't seem like he was an imbecile or anything either, but totally average.
But that kind of puts it, that's a really good way of putting it, is he was very focused.
He certainly seems that. Now, this is a complete aside, but have you ever heard of a website called Probards?
No, I don't think so.
You like this. So Probards, this sounds like a fucking sponsor. This isn't a sponsor. There's only like episode 3 or 4. Not sure the order yet, but no sponsors yet.
So Johnny, tell me more about
Probards, Shane, is a free, remotely hosted message board service that facilitates online discussions by allowing people to create their own online communities. The service hosts over 3 million internet forums, which in turn have approximately 22,800,000 users worldwide. So it's like a old school message board. You create your own message board.
Yeah.
And you can have all these other discussions. In fact, if you go to itcamefromthenet.boards.net, there's a discussion message board for this website, for this podcast.
Excellent.
I really like the idea of us having an old school message board, not Discord or a Twitter account, but an old school.
Because that's where we're going to find a lot of our research over the next
it's just so many of this stuff we're going to be talking about will have come from those old message boards. So just I don't know. I'll send you a link. I've only registered. I haven't there's not much to do on it, but you know the old school message boards where you heard about like that some guy called Chris Nolan was doing a Batman movie back like in 2006 or whenever, the year before Batman Begins came out. Those type of message boards that
it's like the guy who made Memento. Oh.
You checked it, you looked at it in school. Like we were talking about that last week, weren't we? First website. But so we're going to have a message board there. Now the reason I bring it up, it sounds like that was completely random, but a popular message board registered on this site is a board called Earon GSK, so EARON which is the collected abbreviations for Joeseph DeAngelo's 3 most famous nicknames: the East Area Rapist, Original Night Stalker, and Golden State Killer.
Oh, yeah.
So this message board was created, I'm not actually quite sure, I think between summer 2013 and 2014, as best as I could tell. And it became very popular with, or one of the more popular online communities pertaining to the Golden State Killer case. Got a few thousand, like amateur investigators, I guess, or true crime fans. Yeah. That's pretty good going, because back in the day, he wasn't the most famous of serial killers. So to get a few thousand was doing pretty well. In fact, he hadn't even been called the Golden State Killer yet.
Oh, yeah.
Or around this time, maybe. I think Michelle McNamara, she published an article in LA Magazine around 2013 or 14, and that was the first time she used the name Golden State Killer. Because she reckoned one of the biggest problems with his case not getting as much media focus as others, despite him still being, on the loose, was that he had too many monikers that, people didn't know that it was this one guy. So she coined the more catchy Golden State Killer, which is a funny one because I always hear about like FBI profilers and stuff talking about how they don't like the media giving serial killers names. Cause it not romanticizes it, but just it gives them too much. It feeds their ego too much. Whereas it seems to have been really what helped bring the media focus to the Golden State Killer was giving him that name.
Yeah.
It seems to have been a huge advantage in this case.
That's funny. It's a good way of turning that thing on it, like that idea on its head, I think.
But I suppose and it worked, but also you see Golden State Killer, I feel like he wasn't like the Zodiac where he was starved for media attention.
Yeah.
So he'd have probably maybe wouldn't have wanted a name even, who knows. Yeah, it's these kind of message boards, like a lot of these were set up, like there was one on A&E, because A&E used to be a big true crime network. They had their own message board, and there was a Golden State Killer one on there too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, they're kind of like a precursor to like how big true crime podcasts are now. A lot of the people hosting true crime podcasts now were like members of these boards back in the day. Michelle McNamara even was herself. Like it's on these boards where she kind of became obsessed with the Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
And some people on the boards anyway, reckon that they played a big part in leading to his arrest, which I don't know who's to say if that's true. I mean, they certainly would have brought the media spotlight back to the case, but I don't know if they'd really help. I mean, they could. I feel like amateur investigators probably cause more problems than they solve when they try.
I would think so.
But they certainly would have brought this case in particular, because it wasn't getting media coverage. They would have helped in that sense, like just especially given a voice, like because they attracted people like Michelle McNamara, and she went off to write like, the definitive book about him. They certainly like turned the media spotlight back on him. And, you know, there's some like, I'm not sure on the Probards account in general, but some of the message boards, like, you know, victims and families like sort of found a way to kind of get their stories out there through those sites. So they certainly helped there.
Oh yeah, that was good.
But what if I told you that lurking among all the true crime fans, victims and family members, was the Golden State Killer himself?
I was hoping that's where this is going. When you started talking about the that would be amazing.
Well, now, so we have to go back a little here. So over the years, a number of users on these message boards and comment sections, but Probards in particular, have suspected that he has been present. Kind of one of the earliest examples I came across was a Probards user made a post with a link to Michelle McNamara's article from 2014. And there was a comment on it where it just offers up, the comment just offers up some theories to the background of the serial killer. And this user on Probards just suggested that maybe this comment on the LA Times article was from the Golden State Killer. And then there was another comment. You remember, if you listen to those Conspiracy Guys episode, we talked about, there was a certain knot the Golden State Killer used. And for a brief period, he was called the Diamond Knot Killer. There was this very, very long comment on that article, or one of her articles anyway, questioning the kind of knot that he had used and suggesting that the person who done it must have been like a rancher. And he talked about how this knot was common down south, specifically in Mexico. And he suggested that like the killer had to be Mexican and have one of the Mexicans definitely done this kind of tone to it. And people kind of joked about it then, like that he was, you know, a Mexican cowboy done it. Became this whole joke, but a lot of people really, really believed that was the Golden State Killer leaving that comment. To try and, I guess, swerve authorities towards a Mexican cowboy.
That's really funny. Like if that was him, I could just imagine him sitting down, like reading some article about ranchers or something, and it mentions that this is a common knot they use, or you watch some documentary like, I better use this. Or like, is that what made him use that knot in the first place? Was like he read that in a book or something, you know?
Yeah. Now, I couldn't find the first comment that was suspected to be him. I couldn't find. Like the LA Times magazine no longer have comments on their articles. So, most sites don't anymore, it turns out, because the internet is so horrible that most sites were like, we don't want to hear from you.
Exactly. No thanks.
But I did find the second one about the cowboy knot, and that is, it's like, I just have to let the dog out. So it's just a comment, but it's about 4 paragraphs, and that's the only reason I think it could be him, because only the serial killer himself would bother to write so much about the knot. But I think those are pretty ridiculous examples. I don't think they're really enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It happened a lot on these boards looking into it, where everybody at some point seems to have been accused of being the Golden State Killer. Like if you said anything like too cryptic, people assumed you were the Golden State Killer. And this wasn't helped by the fact that some users who happened upon the board made a habit of just being deliberately ominous about their knowledge of the case.
Of course.
You'd have people that might have known a cop who worked on it, so they might have a small bit of insider knowledge that wasn't known to the public, and they would just milk it and deliberately make it sound like they were the Golden State Killer. And then you had absolute trolls as well, like so. Just made it a bit of a shit show.
Of course.
No, and it's not the majority. Like there are accounts just of users who just trolls. And then like there were other users. I went on a Reddit thread just guys talking about it, and there was a lad saying that he joined the Probards site, and he asked like a 2-sentence question once, and he received like 7 inbox messages accusing him of being the Golden State Killer because of the way he phrased. Well, because he made the same spelling mistake of some other suspect, and so they thought it was a stock account of this other person who they suspected. And it just seems to have happened and now again, because there might have been genuine concern that he was there on the board on 2 or 3 accounts, but then any other account that appeared that sounded remotely like these 2 or 3 accounts, they too were accused of being him.
Oh, okay, yeah. So were people pretty sure it was those 3 were one person? And there's a sorry, this fucking dog, he just looked to go out, now he's looking to come back in. Sorry, give me a sec.
A spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
Well, this is the thing. I wanted to do an episode about people on this message board that might have been the Golden State Killer.
Yeah. And
so looking into it, I could come up with I could come up with about 100 if I wanted to.
Yeah.
There's about 2 or 3 that were in the community still to this day people think could have been him.
Yeah.
And I landed on just, rather than we'd be here for hours if we were to talk about each one, I just picked out one guy to go through who is the one that comes up most often, who's the most likely suspect, I guess. So I guess I would call this the most credible one, let's say.
That's fair.
So on the morning of April 24th, 2018, which is the date Joeseph DeAngelo heard the cops knock at the door.
Yeah.
A long-time user of Probards named Cleopatra, real name I assume, she posted the following message on the board. Has anybody noticed any missing posters today? You know why I'm asking.
Very good. Yeah. Very good thought.
Yeah, that would be my first thought. Because, now would be the time if their suspicions of certain users were warranted, they'd be able to prove it now. So over the next days, weeks and months, users started to document other members of the forum who had not posted since the day of the arrest. And they tried to rule out coincidence. So they only looked at users who posted regularly. I'm not sure how regular, but whatever they determined to be regular, and had been active within 30 days of the arrest.
Oh, yeah.
So if they hadn't signed on since like the 5th of March, it didn't count.
Yeah.
And to eliminate the obvious hoaxers and trolls that had become common on the site, they only included users who had signed up prior to 2018. Essentially
before the case became famous.
I think essentially prior to like Michelle McNamara's book came out.
Yeah. And it blew up.
Yeah. So they came up with 7 names.
Wow.
But within like 4 days, I think they had within like 3 days, they had accounted for 4 of them. So this left just 3. And the focus quickly went to one in particular, a user called CBK. As the reason, I want to get to the name as well.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and a lot of people weren't surprised to see his name pop up, as suspicion had fallen on him prior. Though it may be hindsight bias too, because a lot of users said stuff like, oh, I was suspicious of him back when he said such and such.
Yeah.
But were you suspicious of him then, or just now you're remembering he said it and you're finding it suspicious?
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately and very suspiciously, CBK deleted an awful lot of his posts.
Oh.
And because the board was never massively popular prior to 2018, there's pretty much no screen grabs or archives. Like this had like 2,500 members for a few years, you know?
Yeah, there has to be one member in there who just screen grabbed everything every day because they were just obsessed.
I looked, there is a few of them. There's other users people are suspicious of, and there is screen grabs of them. But to be honest, because I'm not a member of the board or like I'm not filled in enough, I read the screen grabs and I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. I don't know what I'm reading. You know, I don't know why it's suspicious.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you need to learn their language and early and somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you were saying you were trying to get approved into
You have to be approved to join the board, and I never got approved. You sign up and you're meant to get an email. Now, to be fair, it was probably my fault for picking the username, not CBK. Because I couldn't think of a username. And like the only reason I wanted to sign up was to look into this guy. So that was just in my head. And then I realized, they're going to think I'm like either... if they genuinely believe CBK is the Golden State Killer, now they think that like the Golden State Killer is accessing the internet through prison or something, or it's a troll. They most likely think, it's another troll coming in.
Yeah, I'd say they think you're a troll.
Of course. Yeah. But also, like, to be honest, to get in, like, you're talking about like 6-7 years of drama on a message board. You're never going, like, for a podcast, you're never going to go through all that stuff. Like,
no.
Like, I feel like I read an awful lot of stuff on these boards and still know very little. Yeah. I couldn't do any more. Which, by the way, to make that clear, all my source for this is just existing posts and the word of mouth of other people on the boards. Like, there's no YouTube videos or podcasts or LA Magazine articles about this stuff, you know?
Yeah. Which is incredible. I'm amazed.
Yeah.
No one's picked up on it. What a scoop, Johnny.
Yeah. But anyway, so only 108 of CBK's original posts are still public. But the thing is, deleted posts still show, just not the username who posted them.
Ah.
I've been able to confirm at least some of CBK's deleted posts based on the replies. Because if somebody replies to them, they'll mention CBK or it'll say replied to or whatever for some of them. Others, it's, again, you're just going on word of mouth, but we'll get to that later. But so I just want to go through a quick like history of his the 108 posts that are still public and see what you make of them, right? So his first post that remains undeleted was left on the 6th of October 2015, replying to a thread on whether users thought the Golden State Killer was alive or dead. He just replied with one word: alive.
Of course.
But digging a little deeper, you can find some earlier posts. It would seem his first actual post was on a thread questioning whether the Golden State Killer fathered any children. And he replied, one daughter. Now, DeAngelo actually had 3 daughters. Yeah. So some users who really want to believe this user is DeAngelo are quick to point out that he had 1 daughter living with him at the time. But that seems... I don't think he'd... he wouldn't... He had 3 daughters. He'd reply 3 daughters. But also, other people are like, oh, well, why would he tell how many daughters he had? Yeah. Wouldn't he just lie? Wouldn't it be misdirection? But then my argument to that would be, well, why post at all? Yeah. He's not going to misdirect authorities because, one random anonymous user on the message board said 1 daughter, so I guess I don't get
search all the men who lived in that area who have a daughter. Yeah.
Well, people keep, like, that's one thing I noticed, like, it's kind of like the people who, like, always... I don't know, like they always find, well, conspiracy theorists especially do it, where they just do this mental gymnastics to arrive at the conclusion that the conspiracy is real. But I'm not sure about that one. He said 1 daughter, he actually has 3. But the following day on a thread on what age users thought the Golden State Killer was, he replied 20. Now, we might have no idea of when he started. I think we both believe he started much younger. But the first kill that we know of, he would have been 30.
Okay. Which is the father of the victim.
Yeah. But again, I feel like he would have been much younger. But again, this guy replied 20. So can you see, like, is there any reason people should be suspicious of this guy yet? Because I couldn't, like, reading it, I was like, why? Why is this guy suspicious? So far, he said he's just gotten 3 things wrong.
Yeah.
But this is
a really good point.
But this is like,
look, he was right that he was alive. Sorry, but yeah.
Well, I guess he was right. Yeah, true. Okay, he got 2. Yeah, that's a fair point. But still, I think I would have thought he was alive.
Yeah. Is it the single word answers?
I think that's it. I think people thought that was weird, but I think also because he deleted stuff. He would reply and then delete them. I think that was the weird behavior.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's nearly that kind of syndrome of, you related this because we went to college together, when, like, to me, it nearly sounds like, maybe it's just the way you're reading it, but when you're in a lecture and there's that one person in the class who almost thinks as if the lecturer is talking specifically to them, and they keep going, yeah. Oh, really? They think it's like a conversation, not a presentation.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that's how he was answering stuff. Like, it's...
But which kind of makes me feel like, an older... Because when you described the college set, and I was thinking of like certain mature students.
I was going to say it's a mature student thing, yeah.
It's a real old person way of communicating on the internet. Like, they overshare and then delete stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I see that an awful lot. It's always like the older people are, the more inclined they are to like overshare stuff. Like, they'll keep sharing like family photos on like a message board.
Yeah.
And then like a week later realize they shouldn't be doing that and go in and delete them. And you're like, well, it's been a week. Yeah. So like, it's way too late. But yeah, I don't know. I think the only interesting thing about some of these posts would be that he deleted them. More interestingly, though, in an undeleted post in 2017 regarding the dates of the crimes, people are asking if they think there's any significance to like the dates, because some of his victims were in or around the same dates, like a year later or whatever.
Yeah.
CBK replied saying, not a theory or anything. He just said this was close to the killer's birthday. That turned out to be absolutely true.
Oh, wow.
So at least we're getting into him getting something.
Of course,
right.
At this time, nobody knew who the killer was. So that's
no. Yeah.
See, like, going out selling his birthday by killing and raping. It's a bit mad.
Well, I looked into that too, because then I was curious. It turns out his kills are all close to his birthday, or his brother-in-law's birthday, or his wife's birthday, or And I reckon it's because it was those. Maybe actually we'll go back and call him very smart, because I feel like what he was doing is making sure his family won't be watching the news around that period. They'd just be busy, and like they wouldn't really pay attention to, because they'd be planning a party and stuff, so they wouldn't hear about the latest victim of the Golden State Killer, and then wouldn't remember that. You know, when they hear the announcement of like, oh, did you notice any suspicious activity from people you know or whatever, they wouldn't think that, oh, Joeseph didn't come home until 4 a.m. last night, because there was probably a party and like they're probably all up late and nobody even noticed that he dipped out or whatever.
Well, I was going to say more like, I suppose, was he married? At what point did he get married? Like he was...
very... He was married during it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, is it a case of like, oh, you were home very late last night? It was like, oh, you know, one of the lads brought me for a beer for my birthday. Or, you know, is that...
Well, it was it was mostly family birthday. So it was the wife's birthday, and like he was very close with his brother-in-law, so his wife's brother's birthday. But I think it was just, they seem to have had a lot of family barbecues and stuff. So I think they probably were just a family that made big deal out of birthdays. So it was just, he was assured they were occupied and just wasn't paying attention to the news.
Just arrive home at 5 a.m. with a couple of steaks under your arms. Like, oh, I just realised we were at a steak for the party tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I think just more, just to emphasize this again, my thing is more the psychological aspect of, you hear about it when, like they say, like if you notice like this, like you won't notice unusual behavior more so.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought that was a weird enough one.
Yeah.
In a thread about the possible other states where Golden State Killer might have killed, CBK suggested Florida. As far as we know, as of yet anyway. He didn't kill anybody in Florida, but now that we know who he is, we do know that he had family in Florida, and he did frequent Florida during the time of his spree. This could just be a lucky guess, though, but I can see why people would see that and think, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Also, if you were going to say there was apart from LA, where do you think the serial killer killed people? I would instantly just say Florida. So,
yeah. Florida's where most of them are, yeah, it seems.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just from watching Dexter, I don't know.
Yeah.
But also, again, we only would have known this after. This isn't something people would have seen as being suspicious originally, because it's only after DeAngelo's arrested that it makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
So I've yet to see why actually people were suspicious of CBK originally, you know?
Yeah.
So far, the things that he has gotten right are stuff that, well, these only become creepy now that we know he was right. But what did he say at the time? I feel like a lot of people weren't suspicious at the time and are retroactively pretending they were, is what I'm saying, essentially.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Now, so he's been on the board a few years at this point, and he actually starts getting more involved in conversations from the looks of things, like in 2017, say. Though this is where most of the posts are deleted. Looking into it, according to people on the board anyway, almost all the conversations that he deleted around this period were when he started to ask an awful lot of questions about people's opinions on how likely it was that they could match the Golden State Killer's DNA sample. And he would just ask a lot of forensics questions, and then once somebody answered and like he got a proper answer, he would just delete the thread. Which seems really stupid as well. Like, that seems so suspicious.
That kind of sounds like a really good reason as to why they suspect it was him.
I can understand that. I think this is where suspicion falls on him. My problem with this is this seems like a different person now, because this seems so suspicious to start a thread asking about DNA and then you delete it. But this could explain why he says such a weird, like, why he gets information wrong at other points.
Yeah.
There's like, they're suspicious of me, so I'll say something wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. But here's one. So in all the stuff I looked up, also at this point as well, he starts quoting George Orwell an awful lot for some reason.
Okay.
And I like went through my brain to try and think because I had a feeling the Golden State Killer had referenced George Orwell, but I don't believe he did. Yeah. So it is quite weird. But here's one. Now, I found it, like, because I read this comment and I thought, that's a very weird thing to say, and just a weird thing to have even replied to, so I had to look into this one. It was one that didn't get any attention, but I just find this one of the most fascinating posts, and I might be alone here. So in 2017, there's a thread about a new suspect based on a photo from a town hall meeting, okay? And nothing really got to do with the actual topic being discussed. A user comes in and he just makes a joke, just an offhand, typical internet joke. And he just says, the Golden State Killer sounds like the kind of guy who would be absent from school on picture day. CBK comes in out of nowhere and replies, yes, his senior year in high school would be one of them. As it turns out, Joeseph DeAngelo has no senior year photo in his school yearbook.
That's so weird.
He dropped out a few months earlier, and he, whatever they call it, the GED or whatever, he got after high school.
But this is back to my example of like a student in college who doesn't get that they don't really understand the setting of the conversation. So it's almost as if he thought everyone on this forum was pretending that they're the killer and they're answering the questions in like themselves in a third person perspective. And then every so often they break the fourth wall and ask like other questions. You know what I mean? It's like
that's why he's deleting them.
It's as if he thought everybody was LARPing and he didn't get that that's not what it was or something. I don't know. It just seems so he was giving away real answers as if he's like, it's like, oh, I know the answer to this one. Like, you know, because it's like me, you know.
He clearly didn't get like internet humor either. Like whoever this guy was, obviously an older person, I would say that's a certainty. Yeah. Well, I think it's fascinating that he got, because that's such a weird thing to get right. to say that he essentially just doesn't have a yearbook photo, because he's just replying to a joke as well. It's so inconsequential. Like, why he even chooses to reply to it is bizarre.
Or like, all I can think is if it wasn't him, it's someone who, in the exact same context of what I'm saying, is someone who doesn't really understand how the forum works or how the conversation works and stuff. It's someone who, in their head, thinks it's someone very specific, and they know stuff about that specific person, and then that one is a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like that there's like how many people missed their senior year photo. You know what I mean? But that's the only other explanation I can come up with for the way that those answers those questions are answered.
Yeah. You see, the thing is, it's so specific too, though. Like the other user just jokes that, he sounds like the kind of guy who'd be absent from school on picture day, and then he replies, yes, his senior year in high school would be one time. It's just so like dead, sort of serious, just being like, this is a fact. Like,
I know who that is. Yeah.
But to go on anyway, so in February 2018, so not long before the arrest now, we're coming up a few months away, there is a discussion about Golden State Killer's 5-year gap. The one I said at the start, I think it started in 1981. People are theorizing, like, what happened? What's the reason for the 5-year gap?
Of course, the classic one is that he's in prison for something else.
CBK comes in and says he moved out of state, got married, started a family within that 5-year gap. Now, he was in fact already married at this point, but now it's very hard. Thankfully, it's very hard to find information about his daughters, because they've got nothing got to do with the case.
Yeah, of course.
So I couldn't find all of their date of births. I did find that one was born, I don't know if it's the oldest or the youngest or the middle child. I think there's only 3, but one at least was born in 1982.
Oh, yeah.
He did also move. I don't know if he moved out of state, but he did move in 1981 or 2. And a family friend moved in with them around that period too. So I think most of what he said here, other than him getting married, he is right, that essentially his house became a lot more crowded. He moved and his house got more crowded. Yeah, that's the reason for the 5-year gap.
And having a kid is tiring.
You would know.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten a chance to kill anybody since you've had a kid.
Would you say that was a good guess, or is that, like, does that make you think, oh, maybe this is him?
Yeah, it's kind of, I could just try to imagine this person replying. Just kind of, it just seems to be like, is that thrown out there as a theory? But it's, but it's 3 theories. You know what I mean? It's, he got married, he moved out of state, he had a kid. But is it presented as in, like, it could be one of these 3, or is it's these 3, or, you know what I mean? It's the way it's written, I would say he means all 3. Yeah, that he's saying he got married, they moved, and he had a kid. That would be my guess, but who knows? But I do love the direction this has gone, where you're not even really concerned if this is the Golden State Killer or not. You're just like interested in the person posting. You're just fascinated by their personality. You don't even care. Like, this could be anybody. Yeah, but I kind of hope it is him. Basically, this is going to sound this is probably the most millennial thing I've ever said, but he sounds like such a boomer, you know?
He does sound like a boomer. That's absolutely.
So I can't think of another way to express that. Like, it's except to use dumb generational name terms that exist,
which aren't even really a thing in Ireland. Like, no, the whole generational term thing is really only American. It's
very based on American culture, and that's
it's only recently they've kind of like started to be used here. Like, only around the time people started giving out about millennials, that was the first time I ever even heard of generations being a thing.
Yeah, me too. I'd never heard of.
To me, Generation X was a WWF wrestling stable in the Attitude Era. That was all I knew about Generation X.
Wasn't it like a Pepsi ad or something? Is that
possibly? Yeah,
that's my vague recollection of it. But it's
so weird. And now the internet's full of people arguing about which generation was better. It's madness.
Yeah, but it's all based on socioeconomic data from the US. So
Exactly,
it doesn't really apply to our society.
It's usually because like the generations start with like the lost generation, like the generation that came back from World War One.
Then there's the greatest generation and the baby boomers.
Yeah, and like they're all generations that, well, we didn't have any of them. Like no. In fact, like especially when it comes to like baby boomers, because that's about how that refers to just how well America was doing post World War II. And like, yeah, well, every other country that was in the war was doing shit. So the generation was totally different.
Yeah. So it'd be like our parents were kind of born that age. But it's, yeah, they were born into a shitty time.
It wasn't, there was no boom. So like, you can't, like, there's no baby boomers in Russia because Russia was not booming post World War II.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
but, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent.
I think as it evolves and gets more into more recent generations, they have a lot more in common because of the internet and communication.
Yeah, true. Nice way to tie it back to the internet.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
We'll get back to his posts in a minute, but I just want to focus on that name, CBK, because you laughed as soon as I said CBK. You laughed. So why did you laugh?
I just thought it was really funny because it's like CSK, CBK, yeah. And I was like, I knew there was going to be something more to it, that you were going to have something.
Well, it sounds like as soon as I saw it, I just thought that sounds like a serial killer moniker.
Yeah, but no, sorry, yeah, that's why. Sorry, yeah, that's exactly it.
Like you just think, oh, the CBK killer striked again. It's like I don't even know what it means. It just sounds like a serial killer. Well, I guess because there was the BTK killer.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Actually, I always hated that name because it was the BTK killer, the bind torture kill.
Oh, bind torture kill. Sorry, yeah.
But it was like, he's the bind torture kill killer. It's like DC Comics being like Detective Comics. Yeah. I hate that name so much. DC Comics, Detective Comics.
But isn't the whole point is it doesn't stand for Detective Comics anymore? But that's
but
it doesn't matter. But
we know that's what did start for. So you can't you can't just pretend that's not the name anymore.
Yeah,
unless they want to drop the trademark of Detective Comics, then I'd believe them.
It's like MTV television.
But so some on the Probards reckon that it could mean something like cold-blooded killer. That might be a name he'd choose for himself. But pure speculation, really. But what is interesting, and I never heard this before, but if you look in, because he had so many names, like the press gave him so many.
Yeah.
One of them he was given briefly before they realized that it was the same guy as fucking whoever he was operating at the time. But he had been given the name the Creek Bed Killer at one point. Which is a great movie serial killer name, the Creek Bed Killer.
Yeah.
Others reckon, that it's like BTK, it's like creep bind kill. Oh, which is kind of how he. Now I have another theory of what it means, and I can't believe I just searched these words on all the message boards to see if anybody else is as hilarious as I am, and came up with nobody did. So you listened to the podcast I done with Gordo recently. We talked about how he would drink beer during.
Yeah,
and detectives reckons he never actually drank them. It was just to throw authorities off, to make them think like he was just this slobbish drunk guy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I believe he drank them. The beers he drank in particular were Coors. So I think it stands for Coors Beer Killer.
That's funny.
I mean, come on, the Coors Beer Killer.
Imagine that's like
the name he wanted.
I know Gordo kept referring to like the wet bandits from Home Alone, but imagine he wanted to be known as the Coors Beer Killer. Like he was trying to get like the media to call him that, so he kept leaving Coors Beer there for whatever reason. He just thought that was a cool name, and
like the worst name ever.
So that was his signature, and like no one put it together.
That's even what CBK is trying to do. But we'll get to other users now just for a sec, because it's worth going into. This goes back a few years, but in 2015, a user by the name of Rare, he appeared on the same board, and he introduced himself as Robert from Texas. And very quickly, within minutes from what I could see, CBK replied to him. And he was just, oh, very nice to hear from you, Robert. Welcome to the board. Just... Yeah. CBK never done this to anybody else to join the board, but straight away he was there to welcome Robert from Texas.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, Robert from Texas, whenever he would reply to something, whenever he'd post, like, in would come CBK saying, oh, I agree, and vice versa. They both got on very well on the board.
Upvoting each other all along, yeah.
No, again, unfortunately, I can't actually find any of Rob from Texas posts because he was banned from the board. So you can't even view his user account. So you can't see all his posts. You might have guessed why he was banned, because it became very obvious to the mods and admins that Robert from Texas and CBK were the same people.
Yeah.
And this seems to have been quite common. They reckon there's I think there's 5 accounts they know for sure that were all CBK, because they would only ever come in and respond to his posts. And it'd be
nothing
in
else.
Minutes. Yeah, and their IP, I don't know if they tracked the IP address or just they were posting from the same region or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just very obvious. And I just think there has to be instances where he forgot to change the account and just...
That could be why some of his answers make no sense.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but that could be he might be meant to, or he's just so confused. He's signed in on a different tab as Rob from Texas, and he's responding to the wrong thread.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that, but if he's because he's definitely, we know this is an older guy. Without question, whoever this is, it's a boomer. So if he has 4 or 5 tabs opened, all signed in on different accounts, he's going to start replying to the wrong threads.
Yeah, of course.
I'd not thought of that at all. That's so obvious. But
I would do that, and I'm not that old. But but I know what you mean. It's very obvious. Must have been doing something like that.
Yeah, now also, it could be, I think the guy's clever enough too, Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when he deletes his, he'll come in on a thread, ask about DNA, then delete his question, and then Rob from Texas will come in and just change the topic. And that's probably why he created it. It's kind of to kind of hide the trace of him being there, that people want to kind of notice the gap in conversation or whatever.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about Rear as well, it's also interesting that he just used another abbreviation, but the username is interesting because it turns out RER, or Red Eye Radio, is the name of a radio station that Joeseph DeAngelo is a massive fan of.
Oh, wow.
And in his time in the mental institution, when he was being evaluated before standing trial, a porter from the institution confirmed this, that he asked him to download him the RER podcasts. So that is interesting. This user had chosen that name.
Yeah.
You starting to get suspicious?
Yeah, this is cool. Because when you're trying to think of other usernames, you think of stuff you know.
Just like what I said at the beginning, what did I think for my username when I tried signing up to this site? Not CBK, because it's just what I was reading about him at the time. So if he was he would have been listening to his favorite radio station, he needs to think of a new username, so he just types RER.
Yeah.
That's how most usernames are born, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, again, this is another aside. This is another user, so it could be another CPA or CBK sock account, but I didn't find any interaction between the two, so I assume not. I'm only thinking it's a CBK sock account if he interacted with them. But a user called Galita, it's a name of a place in California anyway. He posted this following message in 2016. As we all know, serial killers relive their deeds through sense stimulation, whether it be music, visual aids, the smell of cooked grass, etc. For Richard Ramirez, it was listening to Night Prowler by AC/DC. And for Ears, East Area Rapist, it was The Spy by the Doors. So this was left in 2016. That information had never been out there before that. This user just came in and posted that.
How could anybody know that?
And he just stated it as in fact, as if this is in like all the books about the Golden State Killer. This is just in there, but it's not.
Yeah. Wow.
It did come out. It was confirmed to be true in interviews following his arrest, interviews with an ex-girlfriend. She said that the Golden State Killer was a massive Doors fan and had a fascination with Jim Morrison in particular. And he would listen to that song during sex. So
Wow.
this guy was either a lucky guess or he deducted something somehow that nobody else did. Like maybe somewhere, maybe it was never published in a book, but maybe there's some witness testimony that he listened to this song while he was in the house or something.
Yeah.
And this user just put that together.
That's crazy.
But he's very specific to say they use it as like an aid to relive the deed. And he's saying that's absolute fact. And it seems like there is some truth in what he said.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, many people found this one of the more ominous ones.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to let people know, we had some technical difficulties, so we actually took a break there and we're recording this like a week later.
Yeah, so...
people probably wouldn't have noticed, but just because I might say, last time we were recording, or, people will just like, why does Johnny keep saying last time when this is the same episode? But so we just came back from getting cut off where we were talking about the Jim Morrison song, the Doors song, that a user claimed the Golden State Killer listened to reminisce, I guess. Initially to get him sort of hyped up was the suggestion, I guess, and he would later listen to it to relive the moments of his crimes. And the user said this in 2016, 2 years before DeAngelo was arrested. And so before it was confirmed in interviews with Next that he did in fact have a huge Doors obsession and used to listen to them before sex. So a very strange post.
Hype himself up. So yeah, I having thought about it over a week, I have a couple of things I think relevant. But the Doors thing is like I was kind of saying like, oh, that's a good. Like that can't be a guess. You know what I mean? It's too specific. Like you could pick any band. You could pick, like that is a common thing for serial killers or rapists or even people just reminiscing about hanging out with their friends. Like that's the thing people do.
That's just something you do. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like it's a very, music is very psychologically like connected to visual stimuli and stuff like that. So, like I find that like if I'm reading a book or a comic book and I happen to be listening to a certain album, like months later, I listen to the album again and I feel like I'm getting like flashbacks of the book or something. You know what I mean? Like I kind of like, oh yeah, and then that story. And I'll start thinking character arcs.
We were talking just before we started recording about like Tarantino movies.
Yeah.
And like anytime I hear, what is the name of the song now? Oh, Brother Love's Traveling Something Show. It's a Neil Diamond song, but I love that song, but like it's used so well in that movie and specifically the trailer for that movie that anytime I hear it now, I just see a montage of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I need to watch,
because it just fits so well with that. It's great. Or like when I hear the Hans Zimmer piano music from Man of Steel, I just like remember that brilliant second trailer.
Yeah, you think of the trailer that was like way better than the movie. That was like so totally different.
Now the other thing with the Doors though, so everything, all of that is true, as in like the connection with music and that. So going with that logic, is it that lucky of a guess, or is it just an obvious guess that a man of that age in California in the 60s and 70s would have been a massive Doors fan?
Yeah.
Is that like saying a 21-year-old girl now would like love Billie Eilish? You know, that'd be
or
pretty
BTK or something.
Yeah.
Or not
BTK.
Yeah.
Zoomers love the Bind the Torture Kill Killer.
BTS.
That's brilliant. That should be a t-shirt. It's like a picture of whoever the serial killer is, but with the font, the BTS font, done in that like K-pop style, and just BTK.
I'm gonna design that tomorrow when I'm in work looking for something to do. That's a great idea. I I have in one of my notes here, it's relevant to this. I was thinking, so I was kind of talking about, like we were saying, this thing of like him being a boomer and the way he's like the conversation, the way he replies to posts and stuff is like, it's like he doesn't really understand how that communication works or something. But I was kind of thinking about it after, because I was re-listening to a few snippets there. And I was thinking, so he maybe, if it, like, so let's say it is him, right? It is GSK, it is your man. He doesn't actually probably know that much about the theories and the official stories that like all these super fans on the forum know about. He just knows it from his perspective. So he's just he's just responding from what he knows. So he's not, like, I was thinking maybe he isn't trolling them. He's just being honest on how he remembers things, and like from his perspective, this is how things happened, and maybe he gets dates wrong or years wrong and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, or I was thinking that he's purposely giving misinformation that most fans should know, but then spills in little bits of truth of info about himself in other answers because he thinks he's really clever, but he's just trolling them.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
like the stuff he gets wrong are the stuff he should never tell anyway. Like, as in, how many daughters did he have? Well, you'd never want to tell an honest answer like that. Whereas, because I guess why I find it so creepy is the stuff that he gets right are things that there's no possible way you could figure out that it's him by it. It's only when he gets caught that you realize, oh, he was right about that. Like the best example being when the user makes the joke, Golden State Killer sounds like the type of guy who would miss school on full day. And he says senior year would have been one of them. That means nothing until he's caught. And it's completely inconsequential. So like him replying to that is just like for his own amusement, making a joke. Like, because he knows that he sees a user write that and he's just like, oh, that's funny, he's right. And it's almost like a friend, because he's friends with these people on the board at this point, like talking to them, and he just finds that funny that this guy got it right, so he just adds to it.
Yeah,
we don't know if that's anybody else just adding to it. Well, it's just you're just like commenting. You're just adding to the joke. Either way, it doesn't.
I think you're more correct that he's just like, oh, they got that right, and I'm just going to fill in that little bit of story or whatever. I was thinking about the one daughter thing, and I was thinking, this is really dark, but to his knowledge, because we know he followed his victims and rang them and followed and stalked them well after his attacks and stuff.
Up until 2001.
Is it possible that he thinks they mean, did he father any children with his victims? And he knows that he fathered one daughter with the victim, and that's what he's referring to, not his children with his wife.
But how would he know that? And we know that hasn't happened.
But do we? That's what I'm saying. It's just
I think we do.
Oh, okay. That's why I was asking you because you know more about it. Did they know? Did he father any children?
Unless somebody completely just never reported an incident, which is quite possible too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, I do expect that there are probably his victims that just never came forward. So it could be, but then if they never even came forward, I don't know how he would know that.
Well, that's what I mean. If he continued stalking people or following them, is where I was thinking. I was saying, like, to the best of his knowledge, he has.
But if he's just going by, like, this person had a kid shortly after I attacked them, then he would probably, if that's the line of thinking he's going with, then his answer should probably be like 30, because he raped so many people and like they were all of an age where they were getting married and having kids. So
like they could have already been pregnant when he attacked them and they didn't even know it or whatever. I suppose the odds of him, because he attacked so many women.
See, my thing with the answers to those questions, it's like, well, it can't be misdirect, because why would he think that'd matter? And I won't go into it because we're kind of just repeating ourselves, but he would just not comment if that was the case.
Yeah.
But just because we're back talking about CBK now, but just to go back to the guy who came out with the Doors line.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was CBK. Sorry.
No, this was another guy. He definitely isn't the Golden State Killer, at least. We actually know that because he did log into his account a week. He was missing. He went missing just before DeAngelo's arrest, but he did log in a week after.
Oh, okay.
So he was suspected he was one of the 3 that I talked about at the start that was on the list of people that could be him, because they stopped signing in after the arrest. But he never posted again, but he did sign in a week after.
Strange.
Or to the best of my knowledge, he never posted again. I could be wrong about that. But I don't know if that makes it more bizarre that this guy knew that or not. This sounds like it was somebody that knew him personally, maybe.
Yeah, like that's kind of that was one of your theories with, was it CBK as well, or that there's people who either just knew him personally and knew who he was and stuff, or like that there was someone in law enforcement, and maybe there was theories, as you said, like victims talked about this type of music being played.
Yeah.
So
and maybe it's a case that like they knew him, like DeAngelo didn't even know that they knew. Say like there's a serial killer going around Dublin, and you just put it together that it was me, and you just never called me out on it. But you were just like, I know it is him, and then like you'd go on message boards and you'd like just. Or you'd be like, I'm not 100% it's Johnny, but I'm like 85%. So I'm just going to throw out the snippets that I've observed, and I'll see if it pays off.
See if it sticks.
Some serial killers listen to music to relive the moment. For the Dublin Bay Butcher, it's the music from the second trailer of Man of Steel. You just get that specific with it. And I'm on the board meanwhile, be like, who the fuck knows?
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
But I think there's probably a lot of people on that forum who they think that, like, as in they have an uncle or a neighbor or a friend who they think could be this person because of where they lived, the time period and all that kind of stuff. And so then they're basing their theories with that, as in they've already come to the conclusion. So they're looking for evidence to back up their conclusion. As you were saying with conspiracy theorists and stuff, how they'll do a bit of mental gymnastics to come to the conclusion. So then,
and they kind of work
in their belief system, they believe it's this person, or it was a Mexican rancher who likes diamond.
Well, how about this one? So there was another user. He was suspected, going by comments I saw on Reddit at one point, at least this guy was suspected of being another sock account for CBK. I don't think he was at all, and the main reason was because there's no interaction between the two. And when CBK had like the Robert from Texas sock account, they interacted together. This post kind of sounds like it could be somebody who maybe it essentially sounds like how a serial killer would act if he was on a board and people were talking bad about him. So the user went by the name Unclear, but he's since been, I don't know if he deleted his account himself or he was banned from the board, but he's no longer there either way. But he just starts a thread called Golden State Killer is just smarter than you all. And his post is, he's just smarter than all of you. Sorry, I have to zoom in on this because it's such a long... He has a higher intellect than almost all of you and all the detectives over the past 40 years. He plotted and planned things that most of you all would never think about. He had above average physical agility and could hop fences almost like Spider-Man. And then in brackets, he just has muscular ties. His only downfall physically was his small penis, which from bullying from other guys and laughing from girls led him to contemplate and carry out these acts. When he called the police and said he would tonight, I don't know what, and he's quoting stuff, you dumb fucks will never catch me. He did something that, this guy's censoring himself. He's talking about the R word, I guess. And 40 years later, he was never caught. The problem with the investigation is none of the detectives or these wannabe internet sleuths have ever realized that they are operating on a much lower mental capacity or intelligence than the killer. Once you realize and accept that you are not as smart as him, then you can begin your investigation. No one wants to understand their intellectual pitfalls and shortcomings. Ignorance is leading everyone in the wrong direction.
Wow.
Now, I think it's more likely a troll that's somebody really wanting to present himself like how offended a serial killer would be to discover a board that doesn't appreciate or respect his... Because it's too good. Like,
yeah, that makes me think like that's something written by people who pretend to be vampires type.
Now the thing is, the way it is written, at least from my memory, because there was some like notebooks, and there was a poem and like a weird page just titled Homework that they found in couple of the crime scenes from the Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
Since DeAngelo has been caught and charged and sentenced now, I guess there's probably more information on them. But at the time when I was researching it for the Those Conspiracy Guys episode, there was no information on them. But the way they were written, this guy actually sounds quite like the person who wrote those pages.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what he's going for, I guess.
Yeah. And wasn't that he was still working on like his high school homework?
That's what, at least I think
when he was like in his 30s.
Yeah, but I think that was just my theory on that episode. I'm not sure. I can't really remember.
Yeah.
But it did seem like that. Yeah, he was still. And now, we do know he didn't complete senior year of
high school.
Well, he did eventually, I guess. But no, I think that guy, I just think that's a very funny response. Well, it's the thread he started, actually.
It's brilliant.
And bringing up his only downfall being his only physical downfall being his penis size is just a very funny. Because
no, my favorite part is in brackets, strong thighs.
Well, which is true though. Like that is like he had like really muscular. Well, I guess this guy would have known that. That was witness testimony said that he had like really muscly legs.
Yeah. The one, like, I'm just thinking back to like just you and Gordo going through the whole killer and stuff. It was like just the fucking balls on him, like the mad shit he did. Like, just proper, like this. He was just so brazen and so like, I don't want to say brave, but you know what I mean. Like he didn't seem afraid of anything. It's just bonkers.
Yeah, well, I guess like that could be. I would love to know what like psychologists that have worked with him now say about him, because like I wonder what's wrong. Is there something wrong with his brain that he doesn't have fear or whatever?
Yeah, because that's I was listening to that last podcast on the left, and they were talking about this female serial killer, and one of the things they brought up is like, and like many of serial killers, she suffered a childhood head trauma that basically gave her brain damage. And then they were talking about it, like she essentially had no empathy or fear anymore.
Yeah.
And all this, and they're just like saying like it was the same with is it Dean and someone else, like loads of famous serial killers. They were all like had a bad fall or were like beaten unconscious by their dad when they were a kid or something.
Yeah.
So I wondered, did he have something like that? Like that it's like literally his fear center was just broken, you know? And
yeah, it could very well be, because it does seem like he just had none. But either way, I don't reckon this guy's CBK or the Golden State Killer. I just think it's kind of I think it probably is just a troll, but I think it'd be hilarious if that was, if Golden State Killer was on the thread and that they're the kind of posts he was leaving. That'd just be very funny.
Rather than the stuff CBK.
Yeah. But sure, we've been talking so long now, but I think we should just get back to CBK's posts on April 20th of 2018. So actually we're getting very close to the end days for DeAngelo. But a user named Andrew started a thread positing the question, what if the Golden State Killer had an identical twin? This is based on, there was a theory for a long time that there was two people operating together, because some witnesses or victims had thought they heard him talking to somebody. Now, we now know that probably, because he has, and this could have been him trying to like make himself sound insane when he got caught, but he referred to like having a voice in his head called Jerry that wanted to do all these things. And like, so maybe that's who he was talking to. I remember even at the time, even before they caught him, there was many reports that he might have talked to somebody while he was there. I'm pretty sure he done that on purpose. That was just him, because he used to also pretend to be a junkie. He used to walk around twitching and pretending he was just looking for drugs.
Yeah. Wasn't it he'd just tell people, I'm not going to hurt you, I just want money?
Yeah. So I think he was talking to himself to just like sound like a crazy person to throw people off. So as they'd report that, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking
the
for
cops wouldn't be looking for. Yeah, they're not looking for a sane person who's walking around.
But a lot of people either way thought that it led them to think that he had a partner. And then this person's positing the question that he might have had an identical twin. And I guess they're going with it because, he'd leave the room for half an hour and then come back. Maybe it was somebody else that came back. I don't even know if this guy is serious. But either way, the last person to comment on the thread was CBK. With very cryptic words, he just said twinless twin.
Oh.
Now, and this is something users of the board will have pointed out since DeAngelo was arrested. We now know that DeAngelo's father, this is quite weird actually, he abandoned the family and he moved to Asia and he remarried and he had 3 children and he named all his new children after the 3 children he abandoned in America.
That's so fucking weird. Oh my God.
Bizarre. So there was a little Asian baby named Joeseph DeAngelo. And so people theorized that this is what CBK is referring to, that he was a twinless twin because he had a half brother with the same name as him.
I bet he's changed his name now.
I just love an Asian kid named Joeseph DeAngelo.
It's also that is crazy. He just replaced his family with a new one of the same.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being okay, little Joseph, you love football and the Doors, and drinking Coors light beer. Or he's just trying to relive whatever, I'd say, the 10 years of his life that he was married before whatever made him leave. He's just literally making them act it all out like a play.
But with everything we've been talking about CBK, whether he's the Golden State Killer or not, he's definitely an older man.
Definitely.
He's a boomer. I don't think anybody of that age would use a twinless twin to mean anything other than what it historically means, and that's somebody who only one twin survived.
Yeah.
That's what a twinless twin means. And I've gotten the impression watching or reading posts of people theorizing how cryptic this is. They've just never heard that phrase before.
That was my first thought when you said it, was he was a twin, but he survived. Yeah. And his twin died at birth.
It's only when I saw other users point out, his father had another family, and they all had the same name. That was the only time I was like, oh, okay, that is a bit weird. Maybe that is what he means. But I would highly doubt it, because that's just not what a twinless twin just means something else.
Yeah.
So why would you use it to imply that?
Yeah, I don't think that's...
I just don't think it would occur to him.
Yeah. And so maybe Jerry is his dead twin brother.
Well, I think, we know enough about his family now, though. I think if there was any more legitimacy to that phrase, or to him saying that, I think we'd probably know.
But it's answers like that just make me think he's just trolling. He thinks he's really clever and he's messing with people.
Or is he even trolling? Or is he just doing what everybody else does on the board and just guessing?
Yeah, maybe.
Just guessing random shit. Because there's so much of that just on the board.
Yeah, because he thinks that's how it works. I don't know.
Do you want me to get to... Because, you already know that CBK disappeared from the board. Do you want me to just get to his final post?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So there was a discussion in 2015, started in 2015, regarding where users believed the Golden State Killer lived. Now, as in currently.
Yeah.
CBK responded, Rancho Cordova, just a few blocks from number 1, meaning victim number 1.
Oh, wow.
And this thread started in 2015 and had no activity for you, because it was such an old thread, and he just come in and replied in 2018.
Oh, really? Okay.
Now, this proved not actually to be accurate, but a lot of people will do insane mental gymnastics to try and make it sound accurate. DeAngelo was living in Citrus Heights at the time of his arrest, which is it's 10 miles from Rancho Cordova.
Yeah.
So he wasn't, but a lot of people go, he was arrested very close to where CBK said. He wasn't. 10 miles is not very close.
No, it's not.
In fairness, most of the general public were shocked to learn he was even still living in Sacramento. A lot of people were shocked to learn he was even still in California. The fact that he stuck around the general area to where he committed all his crimes is insane. And a lot of people reckon that he had just moved on, that he was living in Washington, now.
Oh, yeah.
Or wherever, and that's why he kind of stopped, because like he didn't know these areas. He had no connections. So in that sense, I guess it's a surprise that CBK was that close. But I still think 10 miles, he's a bit off.
Yeah.
As for victim number one, well, does he mean the first? He was arrested very close to where a first victim of something. Was he talking about the first murder, the first rape, and the first murder was the father of the daughter he was trying to kidnap? But he might not see that as, because that was like, well, also that like I don't think he'd see that as victim number one because he didn't set out to kill them.
Yeah, that was incidental.
He probably saw that as like self-defense in his warped mind.
Yeah.
Because, he interrupted me trying to kidnap the daughter. So that was his fault. So I don't know it's impossible to tell who he would have considered victim number one.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is a few, you can actually, it's not far from a first victim of something.
Yeah.
So he's kind of right about that part, I guess. But yeah, about 3 hours drive from where the first murder actually happened. So I don't know. I don't know if I would consider that special of a last post. But what is more interesting about his last post is when it was left, the 23rd of April at 11 p.m. roughly, of 2018. So if does that date sound familiar at all to you? Well, not the date, but I'll just say, Joeseph DeAngelo was arrested about 12 hours later.
Oh, that's crazy.
And this user who left that final post never posted again.
That's that brings it home.
Yeah, the timing is pretty chilling, I would say.
Yeah.
Now, that was the time he posted would have been like 12 hours before he was arrested or something. The log off time, the last time he like signed out of the site, or signed in, I guess, was actually maybe like 45 minutes after the time of arrest.
Okay.
But that actually leads people to think it's even further proof that CBK was the Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
Because they think that's probably the moment the computer forensics people just transferred all his data over to their network. Like that they just turned all his computers and just copied everything over.
Yeah, that someone just turned on his computer. Like, wow.
And to add to that, his log off time on the site actually fits the window of time listed under the warrant signature. Like the time that the warrant signed for the forensics work is the same time as, or in the same window of time that they would have. Like, the way, I'm not sure how exactly this works, but I guess they write the time, every different team from the police that enters the house. There's the time they entered and the time they leave.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Like the logbook,
Yeah, and so the time, if he signed off at 11, say, on this site, on the warrant, it's written that the forensics team went into the house at 10:30 and came out at 12:30.
Yeah, I get you.
So in between that is the time he logged off. I guess I'm probably explaining that.
No,
now,
I get you. Yeah, so it's in the window they were there, looking at his computer and stuff. Oh, that's freaky.
Yeah. So I'm still not sure about CBK's posts meaning anything.
Yeah.
The yearbook one is the only thing that gets me.
Yeah.
But what we do know is, like, the only thing we can say for certain is that after years of being an active member on this forum, he vanished just hours before DeAngelo was arrested and in 4 years has not come back.
Yeah, because if it was, the timing's too good because it's before. You know what I mean? If he last, like, I kind of get, like, if you were trying to troll people on something and trying to make them think that you are, say, a wanted killer, and maybe you decide to yourself, okay, I'm going to go troll, and then the day that this guy gets arrested, I'll never log into that account again. But you would have another account you'd be going into, and as we've discovered, they're able to figure that out. Like,
he did have other accounts. Yeah. But I'm going to completely rule out that idea. That's what he was doing, because he's signed up, and that's 2015 was when he signed up. It's way too long of a game to play trolling somebody, and also the chances of him ever getting a payoff were so slim. Like, everybody was shocked that after 40 years or whatever, the fact that he actually captured the Golden State Killer is a miracle.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. It's just.
So I think that's like, there's no way this person was ever trolling, at least to that extent. I don't think they were trolling at all. I think maybe they just, like we talked about before, that they were a boomer who just was just oversharing. Or didn't really know what they were doing.
But it's back to the thing of he thinks he's really clever, but he's actually not. You know, and I think, yeah, I think that's what it's about. You know, and that kind of fits with his crimes. Is okay, his crimes were clever in a lot of ways, but they're also really brazen. You know,
but just to go back to like what we do know. Well, what we do know as well is, so like I said at the start, that in the days after DeAngelo was captured, they started to look at people who went missing on the board. And very quickly, most of their suspects had been accounted for. So he's as it stands, he's still not accounted for.
Yeah.
He's listed as a missing user. Whereas other users have actually been, even ones that didn't sign in since, have been accounted for. I get like maybe mods or admins or people on the site just knew them from another site or whatever.
Yeah, I get you.
But also, like, just to add to that, what you might have noticed is in a few of the posts I read to you from CBK, I mentioned that his was the last comment on the thread.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Now, that surely seems weird to you because now that CBK on this board is a suspect, when people come in and respond to his last post.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But the reason they haven't is because admins have locked a lot of the boards he was on.
To stop people, yeah.
Yeah, they've removed other accounts of people that were trolling.
Yeah.
But they've locked boards so nobody can comment on certain CBK posts. So this really has just fueled other users' suspicions, because they think that the admins and the mods are obviously like working with investigators.
Oh, yeah.
And also because the admins and mods have never really commented on CBK, whereas they've commented on all the other ones they ruled out.
Oh yeah, because it's
but not CBK.
Active investigation or whatever. They're not allowed. Yeah,
that's what people think. Again, I'm not sure if I buy that, but like, it's a good theory. Yeah. Another just interesting fact. So Paul Holes, who's a retired detective who helped capture DeAngelo, he said that while searching his home, there was a sticky note written by him on his computer monitor, and in all caps, it just said, "Internet is not working. Get it fixed ASP," and exclamation marks, 3 exclamation marks. And so his daughter was living with him at the time, so that's probably who that was directed at. So the theory being that, like, he was keeping up with the investigation and knew they were closing in and was actively monitoring it, and he was panicking.
Yeah.
Nothing got to do with him being on this board. This is just what the police thought.
Yeah.
But again, for a lot of users on Probards, that adds to their theory that he was CBK, because he made that last comment and then like his internet went down. And they even think that that's why like the login, like that he was probably trying to log in a few times or whatever, and then he didn't sign out. Yeah. So, and his computer was left on or something, which is funny because technically true, his computer monitor was on when the police came in.
Oh, right.
They assumed he'd probably left it on overnight.
Yeah.
Because he had a towel covering the monitor. So he probably was just trying to like not see the light of it or whatever.
Okay. Why wouldn't you just turn off the monitor?
Well, he's a boomer. Yeah. He probably thought he needed both. But also, well, what's weird about that is that he used to put a towel when he was carrying out his crimes. Sometimes he would turn on the TV and put a towel over it. I'm not sure why exactly.
Yeah, that's some weird.
But, so I actually think, there's probably something more sinister about it. But I like the idea that he just was trying to get the internet back working, and he just didn't want to turn off his computer in case he'd make it worse or something.
Yeah.
So he just left the monitor on.
Yeah, because he thought if he turned off the monitor, it would turn off the computer or something. Like,
yeah, it does sound like he was desperately trying to get back online, though.
Yeah,
like that's definitely.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you add that with the idea that he kept making phone calls up until the early 90s.
Yeah.
Like, he was clearly keeping up with the case online, at least. I think that's...
Yeah.
Without a doubt, that seems to be true.
Which pushes me more to think that, he thinks he's being clever and trolling people, even though he probably never knew what a troll was.
Yeah. Yeah, like if CBK is a troll, it's because it's the only way it's a troll is if it's Joeseph DeAngelo trolling.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nobody else would troll in that fashion.
Yeah.
But then the evidence against is that nothing about his message board posts were noted by the DA or police or anything.
Oh, wow.
They would have taken his computers. They would have had a decent record of what he was up to online.
Yeah.
And it's the DA specifically. So when they, in the early stage of the trial, when they weren't sure if he was going to cooperate at all, and early on it looked like he wasn't going to, he was playing the old man, and it looked like he was going to try get like insanity and pretend, because he was pretending to be really frail. I don't think he really worked with them until the death penalty was brought up. But so at that point, the DA's plan was they were going to do everything in their power to show that he wasn't a frail old man. And because they had collected like loads of home movies of him at barbecues, even a few days beforehand. They had video of him riding a motorcycle on a motorcycle trip. They were doing everything. They just were planning to just prove to the jury that he wasn't a frail old man.
Yeah.
And so if there was any proof that he was an active member on a message board, that would have been better than any of that evidence.
Oh, yeah, because it would show he's up to date with technology and all that. You know, you're saying he probably wasn't that good at it, but yeah.
So if they found any evidence of that, I think we would know. And that's just my feeling. But also, the only reason they wouldn't present that evidence is if that evidence is being used to link him to other crimes.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only reason I think they wouldn't use it. Like they might have been like, we don't need it. We have enough to get him on all these other 13 murders, but the ones we've never even suspected him of.
Yeah, it could just be as simple as that, because I know like DAs and prosecutors and stuff, they try and create focus and simplify stuff as much as they can for juries and things.
Of course.
There's why bring in extra stuff you don't necessarily need to. You know? If you don't need it,
it won't be brought in. But that's the only reason this won't be brought in if they just didn't need it. But they might not have. It would have helped show that he wasn't a frail old man. I guess we can't say one way or the other because the trial never actually went in that direction where they really needed to prove that because he just pled guilty in the end. But I don't know. I just feel like it might have come up. We'd know about it. There was also a mod on the board had spoke with Paige St. John, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning investigative journalist. So, pretty good source. And she's been researching the case in depth for years. And she said that she's never heard mention of any evidence that has linked him to a message board. She thinks he was actively following the investigation online, but has never heard anything of him being on a message board, at least.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
Those are pretty much all the facts we have. So it's kind of up to you, the listener, and you, Shane, and I, to just decide if we believe that he was on the Iran's Probards.
That was a roller coaster, Johnny. Because literally from post to post and story to story that you told there, I was like, oh, it's definitely him. Ah, no, it's not. Oh, it's him. It's not. All the way along. I just couldn't decide. I'll be
honest. I would say no, it's not him, but I don't say that with a lot of conviction. Yeah. I would not be surprised if it was.
I think that's a good conclusion. That it's as you're saying, a lot of the theories that CBK is him it's retrospective.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem.
It could be a simple case of there's a weird user who's just a bit of a funny person online who they don't really understand the setting that they're in and all that kind of stuff. And maybe they broke their computer and didn't know their password, and then the computer or they were in a car accident, or they had a heart attack, or whatever the fuck, or it was him. It's kind of,
or it was just a person who's like, oh, they caught the Golden State Killer. Oh, I must go onto the board, and then he logged in, and his internet went down, and he's like, I'll log in later, and then forgot about it because the killer was caught now, so he just never thought about the board anymore.
Could be absolutely.
But that last login thing could have been that he signed on. He's like, oh my god, he saw the news that morning. He's like, oh my god, they caught him. I better go onto the board and see what people are saying. Yeah. And then he just, or maybe traffic was so busy on the site he couldn't log in, and then he just forgot about it because it was not on his mind anymore.
That's it. They literally they had closure, so they were just done. Yeah.
And I think maybe, he had closure because this guy was caught, so no reason to sign on anymore. And the reason CBK then became suspicious was because other users had the opposite reaction, because they were on this board for like 6-7 years or whatever, all working together to solve this 40-year mystery of who the Golden State Killer was. And then one day it was just solved. And they're all still on the board, and they're like, oh, well, what mystery do we have left? And so now it's like, well, was he here? Here's another mystery. Let's figure that out.
Because they've put so much of themselves into it. And now it's like it's part of who they are.
Because obviously the board isn't that busy now, but there are still active posters on there. And they all... And there's like threads for other similar kind of killers and stuff now, but... They're still trying to keep that community alive and doing a good job of it. But there definitely is a sense of like, oh, now that mystery is solved, what now?
Yeah.
And that's probably why the focus turned towards like, well, was the Golden State Killer active on this board?
I do have one tidbit of information, but my takeaway from all of it is I'd like it to be him. But I don't know if it is.
I didn't want to say that because I don't know what. Well, even though I'm not sure what it really means if I want it.
Well,
but there is a part of me that just thinks it's
him to take as a killer, and the idea that he was interacting with essentially his fans, in a way, and that's.
Well, I think what you mean is somebody like he might have thought of it like that.
No,
I don't think any of the people on the board were fans of his, but in his warped mind,
I'm sure there's people writing him letters in prison. And telling him they love him and all that kind of
there probably is. If there was people wanting to marry Charles Manson, and Ted Bundy. So
well, Ted Bundy was a good-looking guy.
I guess
I can get that.
Yeah, once he's good-looking, it's not weird to want to marry him. I think the consensus between us two is that he probably wasn't on the board. Though.
Yeah,
you would agree. With that?
I think,
probably not. He wasn't there at all. I think maybe I wouldn't doubt he was there, but maybe not posting.
Yeah, and maybe he wrote that angry post about his incredible physique and his small penis. Maybe he just did that one.
Yeah, and he could have still been. Maybe he was still the commentator trying to turn police towards a Mexican cowboy. Now, I should say before we end, there is two other main posters that people suspected of being GSK. Too many fucking abbreviations. I didn't even make any notes about them because, like I said at the start, I just wanted to pick out one. CBK's name was the one that came up the most as a suspect, so I did just want to focus on one, just in case anybody hears this and says, "Oh, well, this person said this, and this is more suspicious." Look, we'd be here. This would be you can make an entire podcast dedicated to Probards users that were accused of being the Golden State Killer. And I'm not going to spend any more than a few days doing research and recording a podcast on one topic. So I just wanted to put that out there so nobody gives a shit for not covering everything. I think we went through the important parts. So this we're so early in this podcast, and with Polybius we called it a case closed.
I know.
Is this a case closed? I don't think. Well, we haven't really. The problem with this is you can't prove it one way or the other. The only way you can prove it was him is getting a confession out of him.
Yeah,
which you're never going to get. I feel like it's a closed case. I don't think he was CBK anyway.
No,
I'm very curious to find out more about who CBK was. I'd love to just if CBK, if you ever come across this, come on for an interview. It'd be good crack.
Yeah, we'd love to know who you are.
Learn about your life, what a day in the life of CBK is, why you chose that name, what it actually means.
Yeah, it's the Chorus Beer Killer.
It'd be brilliant if he was like, you got it. That's why I stopped replying. Nobody got my sense of humor. But then I heard your podcast. But I would like to hear from listeners on this one, especially what they think. If you guys think it was the Golden State Killer.
On the presented evidence.
Yeah.
But I agree with you.
If you have new.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. There's a case closed. I'm going to say it's not him, but I wish it was. Yeah, it's not him, but I wish it was.
Yeah. But if presented with new evidence, I'm definitely open to the possibility.
Yeah.
So if you want to get in touch with us about your opinion, whether you think it was him or not, or new evidence, like I said, we have our own Probards now. So like maybe some of our listeners will get accused of being a serial killer. Who knows? Maybe a serial killer will come on the board. Anything could happen. So you can go to itcamefromthenet.boards.net. We'll have other social media up. I'll put a link in the description. You can click there and find social media. I don't think there's anything else to add, is there?
No, just I have a few theories about that Dublin serial killer I'm going to go talk about on Probards.
Start just a whole section of it for that.
Yeah. He also likes Motorhead.
You know, now if we actually do get a Dublin serial killer, they will just come in on that board. But yeah, until next time, just try enjoy the internet.